Get your brand connected to 35 million readers in India and 2 million in the USA. Global Eye Magazine, the fastest-growing Indo-US weekly. Our magazine dives deep into exclusive stories, face-to-face interviews, and key happenings across the USA and India, delivering content you won't find anywhere else. Advertise with Global Eye Magazine and reach highly targeted and influential audience. Contact us to book your ad space.
Hello and welcome to Dr. VGP Talk Show.
Join us for the G.S.A. Global Millets Expo on April 11th and 12th, 2025, hosted by Purdue University College of Agriculture Department of Food Sciences in collaboration with the Global Strategic Alliance, USA, and the Global Eye International Institute for Leadership, taking place at the Purdue University campus at West Lafayette, Indiana. This exciting event unites farmers, food producers, industry leaders, and innovators from the USA and India to celebrate and explore the incredible potential of millets, supergrain. Showcase your millet products, set up an exhibit booth, and connect with partners who share a vision for healthier, sustainable food solutions. Don't miss this opportunity to network, discover new markets, and gain valuable industry insights. Register now as a delegate to secure your spot and be part of this transformative event in sustainable agriculture. For more details, email us at gsaglobalmilletsexpo@gmail.com. See you.
Hello and welcome to the Global Eye Magazine's podcast, Dr. VGP Talk Show, featuring today a distinguished power-packed panel to honor the great legend, U.S. civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on his birthday and commemorating his leadership. Today we are having a round table with this very distinguished power-packed panel representing different walks of life, from a student to a CEO to founders of religious institutions in Chicagoland and beyond. It's a round table on interfaith dialogue. Welcome. Sit back and enjoy and listen to this enlightened conversation we're going to have with these distinguished people. I'll request each of them to briefly introduce themselves now before we engage in this animated conversation.
Good evening. My name is Robert York, CEO and founder of the non-for-profit John W. Tutson Jr. Children and Youth Services.
Hi, I'm Pat Merriweather, Argus, and I'm with the chair of St. Bernard Hospital, executive director of Project Patient Care, and I'm also a Rotarian, the past RI vice president.
Good evening. I am Nneka Obasi. I am senior community liaison with the Chicago Mayor's Office of Immigrant, Migrant, and Refugee Rights.
Hi, good evening. My name is Abbas Ali Mirza. I'm an author published in the U.S. It's on the best-selling listing for 15 of my books, and I am a chartered accountant, and I've been the managing partner of one of the big four firms in one of the cities outside the U.S.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Sanguinetti, and I'm the former Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Illinois, making me the first Latina Lieutenant Governor in the country and in the state of Illinois.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vijay G. Prabhakar, going to be your host for this enlightened panel discussion on interfaith dialogue.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brandi Jackson. I'm an integrative psychiatrist and the founder and CEO of a private psychiatry practice called 5D Psychiatry.
Hello, my name is Hannah Leong. I'm a student at Naperville Central High School and the co-founder of nonprofit organization Asian Impact Movement.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Kruger, and I'm with the Science of Spirituality International Meditation Center.
Hello, my name is Ram Chakraborthy. I'm founder of Chicago Bari, a Hindu temple.
Hello, my friends. My name is Shuai Liu. I'm a diplomat working in the Chinese consulate in Chicago. Thank you.
Well, you heard from the power-packed speakers we are having on this panel, and this Martin Luther King Roundtable on Interfaith Dialogue has been brought to you by the International University of Vedic Wellness in Streamwood, the American Multi-Ethnic Commission headquartered in Naperville, the Citizens Action Alliance for Behavioral Health headquartered in Hillside, the MedStar Laboratory where we are taping this production, and the Gandhi King Center for Nonviolence in Englewood. Our first speaker today who's going to lead the discussions is Dr. Brandi Jackson. Dr. Brandi Jackson is an integrated psychiatrist, and she is the founder of 5D Psychiatry. Over to you, Dr. Brandi Jackson. Thank you so much to all the panel members for taking time off and coming on a cold day here. And it's so important, shows your commitment to the living legacy of Martin Luther King and the need of the hour of interfaith unity. We deeply thank each of you all for coming from your busy schedules and joining us today to enlighten not only Chicagoland, not only America, but the whole world, what we need today and how can interfaith dialogue be achieved. Dr. Brandi Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening. It's an honor to be here today to speak about a topic so close to my heart, the role of women in interfaith dialogue. I come to this conversation wearing many hats. I'm a woman, a millennial, a psychiatrist, mother to a young son, and the wife of a disabled veteran. Each of these roles shape how I see the world and my commitment to fostering healing and connection. Let me begin with a story. About a year ago, I found myself 6 months pregnant, preparing to pass through a metal detector at the entrance of a maximum security prison. As I waited my turn to pass through security, a soft-spoken woman with kind eyes approached me. I recognized her immediately as the prison warden. She greeted me warmly and asked how far along I was. I told her 6 months, and she congratulated me. Then she paused and asked quite sincerely, "How are you doing?" And in that moment, I understood that the warden wasn't just making small talk with a new staff member. As a fellow Black woman in a place where light was hard to come by, she was asking a much deeper question. How is your spirit doing in this place of imprisoned souls? I answered sincerely. I told her that the prison was a lot to take in, but that I loved the work so far, even though it was very, very difficult. I explained that I am a woman of faith and that I understand that God walks with me into every room I enter. I explained that somehow I felt safe despite the environment. Her face lit up when I mentioned God, and God actually became the topic of the rest of our very brief conversation. That exchange reminded me of the quiet but profound ways women hold space for one another in some of life's hardest places. Women often lead not through grand gestures, but through acts of connection, through acknowledging one another's humanity, even in spaces where it can feel erased. In the same way, interfaith dialogue thrives when we honor the experiences and beliefs of others. Women, with our capacity for empathy and connection, are uniquely positioned to lead in this space, whether it's through small, sacred moments like the one I shared with the warden, or through building bridges between diverse communities. Women have the ability to foster understanding and unity in a way that is deeply personal and transformative. But let's be honest, our leadership does not come without its challenges. I know what it feels like to carry the weight of intersecting roles and identities. Navigating spaces where both my race and gender are underrepresented often requires twice the effort to be heard and valued. This is a reality many women, especially women of color, face in interfaith and leadership spaces. And then there's the reality of patriarchy within religious institutions. Many faith traditions have historically excluded women from leadership roles, confining us to supportive, nurturing positions. And while these roles are important, they often fail to recognize the full scope of what women can offer as thought leaders and decision makers. On top of the structural barriers, there's the everyday balancing act that we do. As a wife and a mother, I know that delicate balance of managing personal and professional responsibilities while advocating for dialogue and unity. Despite the challenges we face, women continue to serve as catalysts for healing. One of the most powerful tools women bring to interfaith dialogue is storytelling. We carry the stories of our ancestors, our families, and our communities. These stories have the power to bridge divides, to create empathy, and to foster deep understanding. In my practice as a psychiatrist, I often draw on personal and collective narratives to help patients integrate their spirituality into their healing. My work reminds me that faith isn't something that divides us. It's something that can bring us together when we approach each other with openness and respect. As a wife, witnessing my husband's recovery from the trauma of combat taught me about resilience and adaptation. Furthermore, marriage has taught me about safety, love, and true partnership. Being a mother has taught me about the importance of fostering values in the next generation. Raising my son has deepened my commitment to teaching empathy and respect. I want him to grow up in a world where differences are celebrated and not feared. Finally, my journey as a leader has shown me the power of collaboration. I've had the privilege of serving people from all walks of life, many of whom have experienced marginalization and trauma. By honoring their stories and creating spaces where their voices can be heard, I've seen firsthand how unity can be forged through mutual understanding. So how do we ensure that women continue to lead in interfaith dialogue? First, we must challenge faith communities to amplify women's voices. This means creating spaces where women are not just participants, but are also leaders. It means dismantling the patriarchal structures that limit women's roles in religious institutions. Second, we need to empower women to embrace their identities as sources of strength. For too long, society has tried to put us in boxes, but the truth is, our intersectional identities, our experiences as women and mothers, wives, professionals, and community members are what make us powerful leaders. I invite each of us to reflect on how we can support women in our own communities, whether it's mentoring, advocating for inclusive policies, or simply listening with an open heart. We all have a role to play in creating a world where women leadership is celebrated. In closing, I want to leave you with a vision. Imagine a world where we invite women to lead interfaith dialogue, a world where compassion, empathy, and understanding guide our conversations, a world where our differences don't divide us, but enrich us. That is the world I want for my son. That's the world I believe we can create together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brandi Jackson. You talked about women are pillars of interfaith unity, that women are catalysts by storytelling, the power of collaboration, and that unity can be forged through mutual understanding. I mean, you spoke very well, you drew from personal experiences, and you ended up by saying that's the type of world you like for your newborn son who's nearly a year old.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Any of the panelists would like to add or ask a question to Dr. Brandi Jackson before we go on to the next speaker? I have a question, but I'll wait for you all, the distinguished panelists. Anybody has any question? Okay. I want to know, is America ready for a women's president?
Well, I tend to be an eternal optimist, and I often think things come just before we feel ready, and so I'm hopeful. I like to see us stretching ourselves.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Brandi Jackson, and you were very to the point and with your poignant remarks. which will resonate with many women in the audience as well as in the panel. Our next panelist is none other than you heard, the first Hispanic woman to be a lieutenant governor in the whole of America. Meet the one and only charming, erudite, and most dynamic Hispanic lady, Lieutenant Governor Evelyn Sanguinetti. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Yes. And you know, she has embraced herself in 4 years with Governor Rauner when she was the Lieutenant Governor. And many a times have we spoken to her during the period and afterwards. And she is very practical. She does not believe in dividing the community. She believes in unifying the community. And we'd like to hear her remarks today, especially on not only on what the Hispanic community are facing today, but also on interfaith unity and how can that build bridges of communication, not only at the ground level, right up to the federal level and in the global level. Please welcome the first Hispanic woman Lieutenant Governor, Ms. Evelyn Sanguinetti.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Prabhakar, and thank you, Dr. Jackson, for your kind words and sharing your story with us. I was very inspired by it, and I was more so inspired by your truth and your willingness to let us in. So thank you. Again, I'm Evelyn Sanguinetti, and I'm the former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois, and I've taken great pride in working with women of all walks of life, whether they're Republicans, like I am, since birth, or whether they're Democrats. I figure if I could help women and we could get ahead together, we've already turned the page in our history to make the world a better place for all of us. Thank you for inviting me to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy. And many people think about Dr. Martin Luther King and what he did for the Black community, but he did so much for all of our communities. And I'm going to start with Hispanics, for instance. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King has a quote, and I believe it goes something like this: "We all may have come on many different ships, but we're on the same boat now." And that is really what it is. We're all on the same boat. And so my story is not your typical story, but it's definitely very American. And I think it's important to share it because my story is not unique to me. I think it's everyone's story here with us today. My mother was a refugee from Fidel Castro's Cuba. And my father was from Ecuador. And both of them came to this country for very, very different reasons. But we know those reasons all too well. My mother came here because we had people in our community, neighbors, pretty much telling upon neighbors if we were doing things that did not agree with Fidel Castro's regime. And so that side of the family came here for freedom and to be able to afford us, the next generation, a good education and everything that they could get through freedom. And then my dad's side of the family was from Ecuador, and my grandfather, Raul, drove a cab, and my grandmother was an X-ray technician, and you would think that both of them working really hard in Ecuador made them a living wage so that they could be middle class and send their kids to get a world-class education, right? But that wasn't the case. But this was all good for me because both sides of the family came to this place called Hialeah, Florida. A lot of people that think of Florida, they think of Miami, but for immigrants and refugees, that's not the place where we start. Miami is very cosmopolitan, very expensive. So my parents meet at an apartment complex, and I came shortly thereafter. My mom, Alina, chooses to have me and to keep me when she was only 15 years of age. The reason why this is important is because this painted the sort of backdrop that was to be my life going forward. It determined where I lived, determined whether I got a world-class health care. Where I lived determined whether I got a world-class education. And where I lived determined pretty much my proximity to future jobs and everything else. My proximity to doctors and getting world-class health care. But really, if you grow up in these refugee and immigrant communities, you don't get much of that. And so I remember getting started in school, and you know, we didn't get English as a second language. I'm aging myself, I'm 54 years old. So in the 70s, you were pretty much presented in classrooms where the teachers were speaking at you in English. And then you had your family who did not speak English at home wanting you to learn English so that you could say, Mommy, this is when the rent is due. This is what the mail says. Mommy, this is what your doctor is telling you. So there was a lot of pressure on us child advocates growing up. But I had my Shiro, who never received a high school education, my mother. And she always said, Evelyn, en este país, tú vas a subir como la espuma. I talk like a Cuban, Dr. VJ.
Fabulous, keep going.
That means in this country, you're gonna rise like the foam. And she told me the stories of access, and she told me the stories of opportunity. And even though I wasn't feeling it just yet in my classrooms in these underserved schools, and even though I was getting evicted with my family all the time and those schools were ever changing, and even though I failed the first grade, the first lieutenant governor, female in the country, failed the first grade, I knew that my wishes could come true in this country. And so I kept trying, and I found my way out through education. But as you folks know, it doesn't happen to all of us. So I kept trying, and my mom fought really hard so I could learn how to play the piano, go to college, go to law school, and ultimately become lieutenant governor. So my work here is not done, because my work, and through my faith, is to help women. A lot of women, they've made it, and they don't look back to pick up those that want to follow in our footsteps. And that's why I'm here today. Let's go forward.
Wow, wasn't that an inspiring address? I mean, it came from your heart, Evelyn, and you couldn't have said it better. And your remarks are so pertinent today. I'm sure the panel would agree in the atmosphere we're here. If any of you all would like to address any questions, any comments on what the first Latin American Lieutenant Governor, Evelyn Sanguinetti, has just addressed us in such a powerful, emotional manner, reminding all of us that her mother was a Cuban refugee. Her father was from Ecuador, and how she learned to speak English. I mean, please, this is a wonderful testimony she's sharing. If any of you would like to add to it, ask us some questions, this is the time. The audience will get a chance at the end of the panel, but anything you would, yeah, Hannah?
I'm a little curious. What was it like? What did it feel like to break that mold and become the first female Latina Hispanic lieutenant governor? Because that's so amazing.
Well, I felt like it was a great responsibility to have that sort of role, because being the first in the 21st century is not good, folks. We waited a long time. So that meant that I needed to pay it forward so that there could be, and thankfully in the state of Illinois, you have your first African-American lieutenant governor in Juliana Stratton. But we're still seeing firsts in the 21st century. And I would suspect that Juliana feels the same way I felt when I was sworn in, which is we have a great responsibility to help those girls become first in everything else going forward. So it felt like a great responsibility. Thanks.
Any more questions, comments on what the first Latin American Lieutenant Governor in the country just said? Ms. Obasi, do you have?
Yes, I just wanted to say I was saying how inspired I was by listening to you, and I'm thanking you for sharing, because I could tell that it was coming from your heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, We are just getting started, as you can see. This is a historic panel. Our next speaker is the youngest member of the panel, and she is a rising star in the city of Naperville, a junior in Naperville Central High School, and she serves on several clubs in Naperville, and today she had an important club meeting, and we had to coax her to come in. But once I told her who would she be sharing the platform with, she said, I'm in. Please welcome Hannah Leong, the young Chinese-American junior from Naperville Central High School. And she's going to tell us how does it feel to be a young student today in America, and what does interfaith unity mean to her and all other members in her age group. Please welcome Hannah Leong.
Well, thank you, Dr. Vijay. Once again, my name is Hannah Leong. I'm a junior at Naperville Central High School, and I feel like I need to contextualize that this is one of the best high schools in the nation. From test scores to our parents' tax brackets, we top every chart. And I'm incredibly lucky to go there. I mean, there are millions around the world who aren't nearly as fortunate as I. But a few months ago at my school, there was something the administration likes to call an incident. Incident is the word they use when they want to tiptoe around a subject, but not actually put a name to its face. And they called this one the locker incident. See, somebody had written a racial slur on an African American student's locker. I'm sure you can guess which one. And when I heard, I couldn't find the words. It was like an ice bucket of water was dumped over my head. I mean, almost 40% of my school's population is composed of minorities, Asians, African Americans, Hispanics. And I never thought that racism had ever been an issue at my school. But what the incident proved was, it was a reminder that no matter how clean or conflict-free a place may look on the surface, there are very few places in the world that are free of hate. But you would think that in the modern era, fighting against hate would be easy. Society has agreed as a collective that racism and prejudice is bad. I mean, it's a basic lesson taught in our schools to students like me. But even today, when common consensus works against prejudice, racism is one of the most prevalent topics and contentious issues at hand. Whether it's the incident at my school or the countless others across the country, we're constantly reminded that racism is not just a topic of the past. It is here, it is now, and it needs to be addressed. Today's world is supposed to be enlightened, and yet ignorance prevails every time someone is faced with irrational prejudice. So imagine what it must have been like living in 1960. Well, I'm sure some of you don't have to, but know that that was not an easy time to live, especially as a person of color, any color. Then was an era of separate but equal that was, in truth, anything but equal. It was a time when rights were supposedly written into law, the 13th and 14th Amendments, but were certainly not upheld by the common man. There was a divide of a nation cleaved into two along racial lines that the heroes of the day sought to bridge. Thurgood Marshall, Rosa Parks, and probably the most famous of all, Martin Luther King Jr., the man we've gathered here today to commemorate, celebrate, and discuss. It was a long walk, but I got there. I would first like to say that his legacy stands today and will continue to stand for generations to come. I guarantee you that there is not a single student in America who does not know Martin Luther King Jr.'s name. And that's not just because we get a day off for him. We are taught every year of Martin Luther King's accomplishments and history, and that's amazing. But what I wish they spent more time teaching us about was his vision for the future, because we're supposed to be living it. Martin Luther King famously had a dream, and it was a beautiful dream. But beyond that, he had a global vision for the future, something he called beloved community. His beloved community was a society where people could live together in peace, justice, and equality. It was a community where people were valued for their humanity and treated with love and respect, regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, or national origin. Martin Luther King imagined a kinder world, a world where you could judge a man by his character and not his skin. But he didn't just imagine it, he built it, fought for it, and died for it. And it would be a disservice to his memory to not pursue that kinder world today. Practically speaking, it is easier to be kind in this new year of 2025 than it ever has been. Times have changed, and we've changed with them. Thanks to the internet, learning about others there's a treasure trove of information to understand those that you might otherwise fear. And that information is never more than a Google search away. It's still an effort, yes, but it's one worth making. I truly, genuinely believe this, that with all the tools at our fingertips, the internet, it is so easy to not be afraid and not have to hate. And as my speaking time here draws to a close, I want to draw back to that idea of hate. I think hate at its core is childish. And this is coming from the only child in the room. It simplifies your worldview into something dull and flat. Hate is diminishing and ignorant and in many ways pointless. And that is exactly why it's so easy to fall into its trap. And that's exactly why we have to fight it. Wouldn't it be a dream worthy of MLK to live in a nation free of hate? It's not impossible. We cannot let ourselves believe that it's impossible. At the risk of sounding cliche, we have to be the change. As the man himself said, the time is always right to do what's right. Thank you for giving me time today to speak, and I hope everyone listening finds the time to do what's right for their community.
Fantastic. Let's give a big round of applause to Hannah. You hit home. You hit a home run and you hit home. Any of the panel members would like to add to it? Any comments, any questions?
Thank you for that, Ms. Leong. That was absolutely beautiful and inspirational, because this is what we have to look forward to in our future. So how do you deal with hate in school? Because I remember in law school, I was one of only 2 Latinas in law school, and I dealt with it through education. So how do you deal with hate at the present time?
Well, I deal with hate with trying to give back to the community and be a part of a community. If I'm dealing with hate, it hurts, yes, but I have a network of friends, of teachers, of family who are always there to support me. And that's why it's more important than ever to be kind, to be that network for someone else.
Can I just add? Yes. I think you have wonderful ideas. What I'd like to actually add from Martin Luther King's, one of the quotes, he actually talks about hate. He says, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I think he has explained it so well.
Well, you just heard the next speaker quoting from Martin Luther King, and he's none other than Abbas Ali Misra. Abbas Ali Misra is a very distinguished author, internationally acclaimed author, has 15 books to his credit, and he's based some part of the time in the year in Dubai. He's a certified public accountant, worked with the top big 4. He's also a very accomplished playback singer in Bollywood, and hope maybe he'll sing a song, a verse from Bollywood today as a tribute to Dr. And he's a great orator, and I often refer to him as the Global Prince from Dubai. So please welcome Global Prince Abbas Ali Misra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here on the same platform with such a eminent, I would say, galaxy of speakers. I actually am humbled to be invited by Dr. VGP, which I've always referred to him as what Julius Caesar once said, I came, I saw, I conquered. This is what he does. He comes across to other parts of the world, not just the US, and he just loves people and people love him. So thank you, Dr. VGP, for inviting me. I'm a great admirer of Dr. VGP, and that's why I'm here to be on this panel. And I love to share my thoughts on a great personality which lives, his legacy lives on, which is Martin Luther King Jr. We all know him as an American Baptist minister, an activist, but I think more important is his being a political philosopher. That's what I call him. His philosophies have actually influenced, they've actually changed the entire way that the world was going, especially when he spoke at a very historic moment, the iconic speech that is, we all know about it, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. That groundbreaking speech actually was a catalyst to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So he's a person who created history, and we all are here to talk about his legacies. MLK, as he's also referred to as Martin Luther King, MLK, he spoke at, I think that the historic date is the 28th August 1963, when he delivered the very famous speech, which we all refer to as I Have a Dream. Now let me tell you, I was very happy to listen to the speech again. It's actually on the net, you can all listen. At the beginning, he started reading out, or rather speaking from a prepared remarks, and from the audience someone asked, it says, tell them about your dream, Martin. And this is when, after a brief pause, he left his notes behind and began speaking about the future that actually pulled every heartstring in the audience. And then I'd like to tell you how it all started. This became history by itself. I'm quoting him, rather paraphrasing, says, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, we still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and all men are created equal. This is a very important part of his philosophy, equality. And I'm going to talk about equality and how the other parts of the world, people resonate with what he has said. Then he has a very good message. He said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He's talking about a person's character. This is so much good. In every religion we talk about it. Actually, being a Baptist, being a minister, he always took from what the Bible said, what Jesus says, is love thy enemy. So he always said, do not hate anyone. Hate, as I already quoted, hate will not get rid of hate, but love will do that. So he lives along, and he has given us so much to think about. I actually was very impressed by some of his thoughts, which I'd like to share with you. He talks about hope. And when he talks about hope, he says, we must accept finite disappointment, but we should never lose infinite hope. Hope is everything that a man or a woman lives for. He talks about love. He says, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to break. He talks about the best thing is forgiveness. People think that if someone does bad to you, you need to get back, an eye for an eye or whatever. But I don't think that he subscribed to that view. He said forgiveness. And he said it beautifully. He said, forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. So it's the attitude towards your life when you always forgive people, whoever does bad to you. And that is what is great. Now, something which I think one of the presidents, when he was being asked a lot of questions, he quoted him. And I love this quote about friendship. He says, at the end, we will not be remembered by the words of our enemies, but by the silence of our friends. So if your friends do not support you, no matter what your enemies are definitely going to say, but the silence of the friends is what will actually come to haunt you later. These are some of the greatest thoughts that I've actually seen that what he has said. If you go to the memorial, I would like to draw your attention. I've been to his memorial, and if you look at the statue that is built, there it says, out of the mountain of despair and a stone of hope. This is out of his very famous, iconic speech, I Have a Dream. On the south wall, I have two very good sayings that I picked up. There are many others engraved. He says, I believe that the unarmed truth, the unconditional love, will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, which is triumphant. I repeat, this is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, which is triumphant. This is from his Nobel Prize winning acceptance speech in Norway in 1964. He also made a few other comments which are on the north wall of the, he says, true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. This is actually taken from a book that he's wrote, very famous book, Stride Towards Freedom, published in 1958. Another great quote from him is, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands out at the time of challenge and controversy, taken from the book Strength to Love, 1963. So there's so much that can quote about him. One thing that I think a lot of people in this part of the world probably do not know, I think they know, but I think I'd just like to re-emphasize, he was a great, he used to love Mahatma Gandhi from India. The true believer of nonviolence, which he actually did when he talked about the boycott that he did, he actually was doing what is known as nonviolence. That was a boycott and on the segregation in public, which went on for 385 days, nonviolent. So I think these are the principles that are so good that people follow. I'd like to actually add to it that many of the religions in the world also teach this. Equality is very important. From an Islamic point of view, if you enter any of the mosques, the place of worship, there is no place assigned for anyone. A person who is a beggar on the street could be sitting next to a billionaire and he would be praying. And nobody can stop anyone from entering that place, and you could be sitting anyone, there's no assigned seating. That's equality. The other thing that most of the religions talks about is taking care of your neighbors. Love thy neighbor, as we all know, one of the commandments. In Islam, it's said that you have to be very charitable. In fact, there is a requirement that you give a certain percentage of your wealth every year. It's mandatory if you are in Islam to give away that to charity. What does charity do? All you do is trying to help others. Take out something from what God has given you, from what you've earned, and share it with others. Now, I think these are all the things which are already there in every religion, and what I think MLK also talked about it. So with these few words, I would like to later on come back and add a few things to it. But I just tell you that I'm a great admirer of this great human being called Martin Luther King Jr., and I think we all love him.
Thank you so much. You just heard the internationally acclaimed author Abbas Ali Mirza giving such wonderful quotes and bringing back Martin Luther King Jr. in our midst by wonderful sayings what he has done, which are so relevant today. I'm sure some of the panel members would like to add and resonate what he just said. He said about that evil shall triumph.
In some challenging times right now, and I in the United States.
Yes.
And so it's going to be, do we sit still or do we become active? And again, I defer to you. I'm sure that India has gone through changes. Every country has gone through changes. But what's the position? Do we sit and wait, or do we become engaged and involved?
Let's ask the Lieutenant Governor, Evelyn, to answer that.
Well, we should always be engaged. And we should bring in our family to become engaged as well. I have 3 kids. They're no longer kids. They're young adults. But at a young age, I taught them that if they don't say anything, they'll end up like the people that had to come to the United States. So, yes, I believe we must stay engaged at all times.
Dr. Ram Chakraborty, what are your comments on what was just said? I know.
It's like, as you say, that every religion hold everybody in positive part of it. See that regardless of was the situation, if we all, as you say, that focus to the positivity of it, then a lot of problem goes away. And also, as many of the speaker, the women rights and women equality is very important, because without them you cannot build a family. And when you build a family with their strength, your equality grows with it.
We'd like to have the Honorable Consul from the People's Republic of China give his comments on what Prince Abbas just said.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm very humbled to be here, and I'm really deeply inspired by all what you said. Especially, I think, I work in the consulate. Our mission is to deepen the beneficial cooperation between our two countries. And our consulate covers 11 states, especially, Midwest of the United States. So I think I can draw some wisdom and strength from what you said, is that, also other guests said, we need to have all mutual respect. We need to, our young generation said, we need to, despite all, regardless all of the, hatreds, we need to, have deepening mutual understanding of two nations, to bring more, fruit cooperation for our two nations. Thank you.
Now our next speaker is someone you must know. Jonathan Kruger. He is from the Science of Spirituality, which is a mosaic of all faiths. And if you all know of Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj as the founder, they have the largest center here in Lisle, close to Naperville. And Science of Spirituality is known for its meditation, for its yoga, and for the world's largest vegetarian mela which they have. And we are so fortunate to have Jonathan Kruger as one of the leading members. They don't have titles like we have trustees, bishops, mullahs, or priests, but they call themselves as members of Science of Spirituality. And Jonathan and his wife Catherine have been very vital, active members. And what I admired his socks, look at his mosaic of all colors, mosaic of all faiths. So please welcome the next speaker, Mr. Jonathan Kruger of the Science of Spirituality.
Thank you. Well, first I want to thank you, Dr. Vijay, for inviting us to participate in this wonderful celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. On Monday, I had the good fortune to attend the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Breakfast in DuPage County. And even though it was minus 10 degrees outside, over 1,500 people attended the early morning breakfast. The program opened with prayers from 6 different religions. And the guest speaker was Fred Gray. Now, he was the attorney who represented Rosa Parks. Right? He was one of the leaders that launched the civil rights movement. And he was a good friend, obviously, of Dr. King, and he shared wonderful stories of their times together fighting for civil and human rights. Fred Gray is 94 years old and is still in the trenches fighting the good fight, which is just amazing. That program and this program and all the events throughout our country show that Dr. King's vision, his passion, and his mission is still alive and influencing and inspiring people all over the world, even 57 years after he was taken from us. And this type of impact happens not because one has a vision, but because one lives that vision. Dr. King was an example of what he believed, he was an example of what he taught, and he was an example of what he dreamed. In January of 1967, Dr. King went to Jamaica to write a book to reflect on the work that has been done, but also that has been done over the last decade at that time. But most important, to look into the future and write what is needed to be done. This was the last book that he wrote, and it was entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? There was one paragraph that I believe summed up who Dr. King was and why he was such an inspiration to all of us. He writes, This call for worldwide fellowship is beyond one's tribe, race, class, or nation. This often misunderstood and misinterpreted concept has now become an absolute necessity for survival. And then he writes about this concept. He tells us, he goes, when I speak of love, I am speaking of that force which all great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is the key that unlocks the door which leads to the ultimate reality. So likewise, at the Science of Spirituality, love is the very heart of everything we believe. And the head of the Science of Spirituality, Sant Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj, says, God is love, and our soul, our consciousness, is of the same essence as of God, is also love, and the way back to God is love. And Maharaji tells us also that an ethical life is the very foundation for our spiritual life. And when we are in love, what happens? We are kind, we are considerate, we are compassionate, we have empathy and sympathy for others, we forgive, and we treat those we love with the deepest of respect. At the Science of Spirituality, like Dr. King, love is not only the journey, but the goal. We believe that we should develop these qualities of love, not only in our actions, but in the words we speak and the thoughts we think. And that we should love not only our families and not only humanity, but we should love all of God's creation. And when we are in love, what do? We want to serve others. Seva with humility and with gratitude. Maharaji, he teaches a simple and yet powerful method of meditation on the inner light and sound of God that guides us to connect with the divinity that lies within each of us. And when we meditate, we see that inner light and experience the bliss of God's love. The light is within all of us and within all of God's creation. It is then that we can achieve not only inner peace, but we can also achieve lasting outer peace. Maharaji says about meditation, he goes, prayer is when we talk to God, meditation is when we listen. We all know that Dr. King was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi to take up the cause of the nonviolent civil disobedience. Dr. King said that the Gandhian philosophy, quote, the only morally and practically sound method open to oppress people in their struggle for freedom. He also said, he goes, Christ showed us the way, and Gandhi in India showed it that it can work, right? So today we're celebrating the life of Dr. King. Let us have a renewed effort, once again, to live up to Dr. King's call to action, for his mission is needed today, for there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. And Dr. King wrote, and I think it was previously quoted, the ultimate measure of a man and woman is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. So I'd like to end, and I'd like to close with a verse from the renowned poet Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj. And this verse was translated from Urdu by Sant Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj. And to me, this verse expresses the life and the impact of someone as great as Dr. Martin Luther King. And the poet writes, your song was born through the instrument of love, devoid of conflict, of caste or class, nor debate or untouchability, nor discrimination. Heads were filled with the business of love. The earth was saved from all the disasters of division, and the world reverberated with the divine song. Wow. So once again, thank you for having us participate in this wonderful day of celebrating the life of Dr. King.
Jonathan Kruger gave us such insightful remarks, and he started by recalling on Monday, on Martin Luther King's birthday, which is observed January 20th, that DuPage County had 1,500 people when the temperatures were freezing cold, below 10, assembled together at Drury Lane. And we had 94-year-old Fred Gray, all the way from Alabama, as the keynote speaker. He was the attorney who represented Rosa Parks, if you recall, a colleague. It must have been a very historic moment. And to see, when he recalled and told me that on the phone when I was inviting him, I just told him, hope is still alive in America. DuPage County is a strong Republican hold. And, Dan Wagner and Robin co-hosted Regina Brent, and who was a long-time African-American woman leader in DuPage County, and Dan Wagner. Both of them co-hosted that event, and they collected $100,000 for the DuPage County Martin Luther King Foundation for Color. And for all of you, the founder of Science of Spirituality, Maharishi Saint Rajendraji, is in town. So if you have the opportunity, you should go and listen to him. He's doing public darshans or public lectures on Sundays at 3 p.m. at the City of Lyle Science of Spirituality. And I learned something new when Jonathan recapped Maharishi's words. Prayer is when we talk to God, and meditation is when He listens, when we listen. Right. If any of you all would like to add some comments to what the Science of Spirituality Ambassador brought to us today, please feel free to do so. Any of the panel members? Hannah, I think, is eager to say something. Go ahead.
I couldn't get 1,500 people to show up for something, even if I was giving away buckets of cash. But the fact that 1,500 people came out, and the negative 10-degree weather shows that people believe in Dr. Martin Luther King's beliefs and the cause, and that there is still hope, and society wants to believe in love in the future.
So last year they had it, and the speaker they had last year was a fellow who grew up in Alabama, and his parents were KKK. Oh. He broke away from his parents, marched with Dr. King, got arrested 19 times with Dr. King. Wow. He obviously didn't make his parents proud. But it was and also amazing. It was also was minus 15 that day, wow. And there were 1,400 or 1,500 people that actually also joined in. Dan Wagner and Regina Brent, along with having this unity breakfast every month, they bring the advisory committee of about 300 people to different places of worship around the community to be able to learn about different faiths and different backgrounds. They've been to a mosque, they've been to a temple, they've been to a Jewish temple, and so forth. And just trying to break down barriers and learn. And
that's really living the vision, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think you should take them to Chicago Bari Temple in Glen Ellen next time.
No, we should make it happen.
Yes, because that's a wonderful.
So one of the programs we had was a fellow by the name of Jonathan Eig. Okay. He was the author of the most recent book that came out on Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's an amazing book. It's like this thick, and it's on its way of being a bestseller. But in his talks, because we talk about everything that we're talking about, but he mentioned, which was I found to be interesting, about how much more work there needs to be done, that when he went to the memorial in Washington and he went to the library, there were no books about Dr. King there. So, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Some say that there isn't a lot of work, but the reality is, and as you find in schools and everywhere, that there's still an immense amount of underlying racism and hate in our communities, and we need to kind of re-energize. And a whole new generation needs to stand up for this. So,
in my line of work, which is psychiatry, we often give medication for mental health. We send people to talk therapy, and one of the things I feel that's underappreciated is the role of silence in healing. What would you say to someone who is questioning the role of silence as a healing activity?
Well, what's interesting is that it's already been proven at major universities that have done studies on meditation as a way to be able to detox the mind and to be able to deal with the stresses and anxieties and the challenges of daily life. We have been doing teaching classes on we teach meditation for connecting with the divinity within us, but we also teach meditation classes on people who are not interested in spirituality, but might be interested in with the tough times in life. And during COVID, we held about 300 webinars worldwide, had over 50,000 people participate in our webinars. Satwar Singh has a book out called Detox the Mind, which focuses on, again, away from the religious or the spiritual side, but focusing on the mental health side. We actually have another book out, which is called Meditation as Medication for the Soul. And so we do a lot of work in the community, teaching meditation for people in all walks of life, helping with the challenges of daily life. So it's definitely a viable tool.
You know, at this juncture, like Jonathan said, we have to acknowledge Science of Spirituality. They sent a meditation coach to the Gandhi King Center for Nonviolence last year for about 6 months, once a week, where they came and taught the community of Englewood how to meditate and the power of silence, like you said.
If you don't mind me asking, what year were you born?
What year was I born?
Yes, sir.
1991?
Okay,
No, maybe not.
1991.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But my question to you, in reference to racism and hate, would you say that it has got better, worse, or the same since you were born in 1991? Explain.
Well, I was born in 1959. I actually grew up in New York and Connecticut.
Okay.
And at that time, integration was just beginning in the schools. When I went to elementary school, there was one African American. Then they moved all of us to the inner city where it was all African American, and we were a minority at that time. And it was a huge wake-up call. And do I think we've made progress? I think we've made some, but I think we got such a long way to go because the things that have been happening in the world and what's happening here today, I think we're just, this far along. We need generations. It's like my children. Their understanding of the world is completely different than when I grew up. And I think it kind of takes generations to kind of erase that stuff. My kids, whether it's race issues, LGBT issues, anything, it's a non-issue for them. They don't see it the way I grew up in it. And I think it takes a generation for that, or multiple generations to happen. So we've made a lot of progress, but I think we got a long, long way to go. My daughter got a master's degree in Columbia in race and ethnicity studies and medical narrative. And it's always an eye-opener because she's always correcting, making sure that I'm speaking properly, that type of thing. But we do teach these classes. We have 3,500 centers worldwide. Books are published into 58 different languages, and nobody in the entire organization is on the payroll. It's a volunteer organization, and even Sanguinetti Singh Ji Maharaj lives on his own earnings. So we have a lot of good stuff going on.
It's fabulous. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing such a powerful message to all of us here. And our next panelist, and Robert, that was a great question, actually. Great question. And our next speaker in the panelist is a very dynamic rising star in Chicago. She is a women activist, a Nigerian American who holds a very special position in the Chicago mayor's office, a special counselor, special liaison, community liaison for migrants, refugees in the city of Chicago. Please welcome Nneka Obasi. And she's going to give us her message and her insights on Martin Luther King and interfaith dialogue.
Thank you so much, Dr. VJ. I just want to say what an honor it is to be on this panel. And the more I listen to my fellow panelists, that sense of honor grows. I feel really privileged to have been included, so thank you, Dr. VJ. As you've heard, I am an immigrant. I'm now a naturalized citizen here in America. But whenever I'm in these spaces and I talk about myself, I say, oh, I'm a serial immigrant. You see, when I was very young, I was a toddler actually, there was a war in my country, a civil war, And I was not on the winning side of that war. My ethnic group was not. Sometime during that war, my parents had become separated, and my dad had ended up in university in England. And my mom had ended up taking herself and the children to his hometown in southeast Nigeria. And so this war came to, it wasn't a very balanced war, it came to a swift end. And my mother and father could not wait to be reunited, and they pulled all the strings, and my mom took myself and my siblings. We flew off to Scotland, where my dad was now teaching. So I spent my formative years in Scotland. By the time I was a teenager, my father decided that we were losing sight of our culture, and he quite suddenly packed us all up and took us back to Nigeria. It was a very challenging move, but I'm very happy he did it. While I finished high school in Nigeria, and I went to the University of Nigeria, a very distinguished university, to study veterinary medicine because I love animals. However, when I got there, escorting a friend to the foreign language department, I saw that if you studied foreign languages, you spent a year living in the country where that language was spoken so that you could be immersed in the language. Well, I changed because I had done French in high school, so I changed from vet medicine to studying French and German. And so I ended up spending a year in school in Saarbrücken in Germany and some months at the University of Grenoble in France. So that was my second experience as an immigrant. I came back to Nigeria, graduated, and started teaching at the American International School. And I got the idea, why don't I go to America? You see, at that time, things were, because of the government we had, things were becoming challenging in Nigeria. So I thought, why don't I go on an adventure and probably make a better life? And if things get really bad here at home, maybe I can rescue my family. And I have to tell you, that is what ended up happening. And so you can imagine when I saw, quite by accident, that the mayor I voted for had created an office of immigrant, migrant, and refugee rights, and they were looking for a senior community liaison. I came out of my semi-retirement. I said I would never do a 9-to-5. I applied, and here I am. But that's enough about me. That's enough about me. I want to talk about another set of immigrants, migrants. So as the story goes, long ago, there was this Israelite family who, because of the dictates of a cruel dictator, had to flee from Israel. So they left Israel and they went to seek refuge in Egypt. They were well received and spent many years until it was safe to go back to their country. Years later, that one of the child that left with his mother and father grew up, and you know, of course, I'm talking about Jesus the Christ. So he grew up and he was able to fulfill his God-given mission of preaching love. We already had the 10 Commandments, and in the book in the New Testament tells us that all these laws are there, and some of them will pass away. But the greatest one is that you love God with all of your heart, and you love your neighbor as yourself. Well, a couple of thousand years later, another prophet came at a time of need. And I'm talking about the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Some of my fellow panelists have already mentioned his many quotes about love, but I'm just going to go ahead and read them again. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Nonviolence is absolute commitment to the way of love. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Now, Martin Luther King focused on love. And as our young panelist said, he talked about a welcoming community. You see, I work for a mayor who has come out in these times, in this climate, both environmental and political, to say that he stands by Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance. First, the idea of that was first introduced by another mayor, Harold Washington. The idea of a sanctuary state, a welcoming city, and several mayors along the line, including Rahm Emanuel, made sure that this became law in Illinois. And what does this welcoming city ordinance mean? What it means is that no matter what your immigrant status is, in Chicago, you will not be denied services. The Chicago police and even the police in Illinois cannot and will not ask you your immigrant status. That is against the law. And so, just like Martin Luther King talked about a welcoming community, this is what Chicago is for our newcomers. About 2 years ago, another state thought it would be good to start sending busloads of migrants to Chicago. Many people were not happy that our mayor received these people. But these people that did not understand that this ordinance, they did not hate the ordinance before we had to demonstrate it. But once we had to demonstrate it, many people did not like it. But I am proud to live in a place, I'm proud to call myself a Chicagoan, that upholds the love that Jesus Christ preached, the love that Martin Luther King preached, and the love that every religion, I do not know any religion that does not preach love. Amen. I'm so proud of this city. We have welcomed these people. Out of welcoming them, we have increased our shelter system. So we now have what we call the One Shelter Initiative. We have added over 3,000 extra beds to what is available for the homeless in Chicago. You see, out of what was meant to embarrass us has come a lot of good. I want to close by reading a few more of Martin Luther King's quotes, if you will indulge me. This one has already been read, but is worth reading again. At this time when many immigrants, migrants, refugees are living in fear, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope will make all the change. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Thank you.
Wow. You know, Chicago Mayor's Liaison, Ms. Obasi, was so eloquent in your remarks. It came from your heart and it pulled our heartstrings as you clearly elucidated what your role is and how it resonated with Martin Luther King's words and philosophy. I'm speechless at this time, but if anybody else would like to add to that.
I think the story that we've heard from many people here of them coming to the United States, being migrants to the United States, I hope we don't lose those stories and be able to relate to others. I just returned from Honduras and Mexico. I do a lot of work for Rotary volunteer work in the border states, the border countries, and I listen to the stories of why they are leaving. And we had recently a Rotarian that died in the desert, and he sent his family here to live in the United States because they had been threatened to be killed because they needed, the gangs needed $20,000, and he did not have that money. I don't think we understand what is going on in other countries, and I don't think we understand if I had children that could be killed or seeing some of the things that are going on in other countries, I would flee. And I think that's why I love the welcoming of Chicago, because I think we all can bend a little and bend towards that arc of justice and look for how we can support other people. So again, thank you so much, because it's an important role, and we will be remembered. We will be remembered for generations as to how we handle the migrants.
You know, that all these migrants are murderers and thieves and so forth, and that, you know, there's this influx of this, you know, that's taken over the country. But what percentage you really think of the migrants that have come to Chicago, do you really think are people who have a criminal background?
Anything I can say would be a guess. However, by my observation, I've seen families looking for work, young men and women looking for work, standing outside Home Depots, trying to do day labor. I found a doctor, a young doctor, standing outside Home Depot, trying to look for day labor. So the people I have experienced have just been people looking for opportunity, and they want to work, they want to contribute to the society, and they're infinitely grateful. Now, we're human beings, so I can't sit here and say there's absolutely nobody, but I have not encountered those.
Right. It's a great forum here, and people have talked about this platform, talking about love, talking about loving your enemies, talking about faith, and what Dr. King actually said
was that about faith is taking the first step, even when you don't know that there is a staircase. So that's what faith is all about. You have love for the Almighty. You want to do things for others because of the love that you have for Him. And you take that first step, and that first step will lead you to the staircase, but you're not sure that there is a staircase. That's very important. So I think we all have grown in this legacy, and whatever religion we come from, whatever faith we come from, I think all roads lead to Rome. So everything, I think we all are here together, and we should work towards that. One other quote that I'd like to share, which I believe is a great quote from Dr. King, is about how we can all unify ourselves. And we talk about peace, but we talk about peace only for ourselves. But the peace is supposed to be, world peace. So he said, if we are to have peace, our loyalties must become ecumenical rather than instead of being sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, and our nation. And this means we must develop a world view, a world's perspective. This is one of his sermons, a Christmas sermon, and in Atlanta, Georgia, in one of the sermons. And I think it brings to life something very important, is that don't talk about only yourself, talk about the world. The world is actually something that you talk about when you talk about peace, and not just for yourself.
Yes, I'd like to say, talking about the world, I'd like to say I'm always surprised when Americans, especially African Americans, when they're surprised, when they find out that their heroes are world heroes. I haven't been to a place where Dr. Martin Luther King was not lauded and known and praised. And not just him, many others, Rosa Parks, and all of the people that participated in the civil rights movements. I just wanted to say that they're world heroes.
Yeah. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I'm sure all our panel members will agree with that. And our producers tells us that we will take 6 members of the audience to come up at the conclusion. We have couple of more speakers to share their thoughts, and we'd like you all to share your thoughts as well on this historic forum, which is turning out to be a big, enlightening panel discussion. Our next panelist is the founder of the Chicago Bari Temple in Glen Ellen, and Dr. Ram Chakraborty, and he is also a simple, humble philanthropist, unstoppable unstoppable for progressive initiatives, peace, prosperity, not only for the Bengali American community, but for every human being, not only in America, even in India and beyond. Please welcome Dr. Ram Chakraborty. He's also going to share what's going on in India today about the Mahakumbh Mela, which is once in 144 years, a very significant Hindu festival which India is celebrating and which has over 5 million devotees. And he's going to talk to us also about Naga Sadhu and talk about Chicago Kalibari Temple. Please welcome the one and only, simple, humble, so he likes to be known as the servant of Almighty God. Welcome, Ram Chakraborty. He's got the Lord's name Rama as his first name, and he lives up to it. Thank you, Chief, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Dr. VGP is my friend. Also, I know him for a long time, and great to see all of you, the great panel, and especially many admire everything you say, and especially what you say on the spirituality and the strength. Look at the panel, how many women are here. So we are the woman's power in spirituality, which is Chicago Kalibari, is a Mata temple, mother's temple, which is you don't disrespect, or every woman walk in there, you treat them as a spiritual highest level. Without woman in a family, without a mother, you don't have a family. Without sister, every woman should be treated as a goddess. And that is the Chicago Kalibari all about. Starting from there, coming at is like a faith, spirituality, love, hope, and dream. Who else, how you can describe Martin Luther King in one and only word, that the strength and the whole thing come down to how do you love the other person? How do you dream? Not only just love, non-violence, and stay there. How to see your spirituality with a dream? Come in a future. What can you achieve? What else you can have? So in that perspective of the story, I want to add one simple story in between, that this Kumbh Mela, which is going on, the biggest religious festival celebration in India, which is started in cosmic world, the positive energy against negative energy. Whole world we face when we say we hate, when we say there is a racism, when we say there is a fight. Here is a fight in the Middle East, or fight in Myanmar, or fight in Africa, Sudan. It's all is the negative energy, we pull it out of positive. So if we push ourselves to get to the spirituality in the positive nature, which is the Kumbh Mela celebration all about, where is the cosmic world this month from January first week to the February end, their moon, sun, and Jupiter in line together. And because during that time, the three rivers get together, which is Ganga, Jamuna, and Saraswati. You may heard it, but three rivers got together in the current. Millions of people come and take a bath, and whole year the spirituality of meditation and chanting, continuously doing it, whether you poor, you rich, you don't need any money, you don't need ticket, you just go there, take a bath and meditate and love each other. They are talking about over 46 million course people are coming there. By the way, we are going there on next February 11th over there. In there is no rich, poor, anything. Where you are coming there, only one and only reason, to the spirituality of positiveness. and which is the Kumbh Mela all about. And all together come to this spiritual and this, what we do in Kalibari, that every occasion, when the pandemic happened, we gave the vaccine, when the sanitizer, to DuPage County, entire county, every university, the Chicago, all the hospital, everybody needed the food. You can come Kalibari, you can take the grocery for your family. Still now, you can no charge. You can walk to Kalibari and take a food. If you are hungry or non-hungry, you walk in, you have a hot meal to take it. To doing that, in my lifetime, in younger time, I met one of the mother of the world is Mother Teresa. So I see the mother, how she love it. Doesn't matter, never ask the ID, are you Christian, are you Muslim? We are talking about interfaith. The mother of the mother standing, we come America to make a better future. Where she went? To Calcutta, poorest of the poor. And she make the whole people love. We talk about love. How much love you can give to the people of the poor without looking at ID. Are you Muslim? Then I'll treat you. Are you Hindu? I'm going to love you. No, everybody equally. Whether you have one day I saw a person come with a pox. She went there, sitting there. He said, go grab her. I said, are you kidding? We all will get pox. No, no one will get pox. Get it. So we all love it, gave it there. They, Vatican made her a saint. We knew that she was saint from the day when I was in high school. Wow. To story of that another, the strength of the woman, there are 3 doctors. It's a true story. 3 doctors, lady young, just graduated, start their practice in University of Chicago. They are sitting in the O'Hare Airport next to me. They are talking about, I'm overhearing, they are dreaming of Mother Mary. They have no money. They collected the money to buy the ticket going Philippines, near Manila. And he said, what do you do? He said, we've been dreaming in the top of the mountain, a big Mother Mary statue, and we dream how big it would be, we're going to build. I said, where are you going to get the money? He said, we'll collect. At the strength of faith and spirituality, what can I say? I would joke to them. I gave my card and told them, if you can build the whole body, I'll pay for the head. Believe it or not, 1.5 years later, the 3 of them came back and said, give me the money for the head. Wow. Today, world's biggest Mother Mary statue near Manila Airport are built by those 3. The woman's strength, woman's mind, woman's spirituality, Mother Teresa, and before that, the Mother Mary, all the example come through that. That is the Kali temple all about. And that's the spiritual cosmic energy is what is Kumbh Mela all about. Thank you for inviting me for the panel. The guest I cannot compare of speech, but thank you being here.
Dr. Ram Chakraborty, you deserve a big round of applause because you're a man who walks the talk and you talked about the spiritual cosmic journey. Tell us about, you talked about the goddess Durga, which is a lady deity, and the Kalibari temple in Glenelg is built in her honor. And how has goddess Durga directly impacted you and blessed you?
Before I go, we have a Durga temple in our home. We came here, my mother used to live with me. One day she said, if possible, you build a Durga temple and Kali temple for everyone who should be able to walk in here, not needed tickets, not needed food. They should be, regardless of their faith and religion, they can come here and we can serve it. That's what we used to do in our back home. So we opened that, with my mother's word, we opened that Kali temple here. And the Durga is created by the negative, kill the negative energy of your life and build yourself strength through the mother and serve to the humanity. That is Ma Durga.
You just heard Ram Chakraborty talking about Ma Durga and the Chicago Kali Bari temple, and he also mentioned, you know, he comes from the hometown where Mother Teresa lived in her mission, Kolkata, as a schoolboy, and he has also built a children's hospital at Kolkata. He doesn't love to talk about anything what he does, but he spends his time after his busy day at work, goes every day to Chicago Kali Bari temple in Glen Ellen on the weekends. That's his hub. You know, you have all these business executives who like to fly to exotic places, party, play golf, but not Ram Chakraborty. He is where his heart is, worshipping God through serving people, just like Martin Luther King did and Mother Teresa. You know, talking about Mother Teresa, we had the opportunity of meeting her in 1996. If those of you all remember, with Illinois State Senator Howard Carroll. We went there and met her personally in February of 1996. And Mother Teresa had only one request. She said, I've been asking a lot of American politicians, elected officials, when she went to the House of Congress and addressed the session she appealed to them to allow the missionaries of charities, workers, to get a free entry visa to US, not to pay the visa fees. But she was not at all able to do it. You know, even Senator Dick Durbin worked as a volunteer for 6 months in Mother Teresa's place in Calcutta. But Senator Howard Carroll, he's no more, I think he passed last year, took it upon his responsibility and spoke to President Clinton then, and President Clinton did an executive order, which is still in place today. It's now about 28 years, that all missionaries of charities, Mother Teresa's sisters, can come apply for visa without paying the US visa fee. And believe it or not, we met her in February, this happened in April, and she personally called me on landline, that time there's no phones, to thank and say thank you so much. Nobody did it but you. Then I put her in touch with Senator Howard Carroll. And President Clinton, we'd like to thank you for what you did for the missionaries of charities, volunteers, which still lasts today. Anybody would like to add and ask questions to what Dr. Ram Chakraborty's inspiring address? He talked about the Mahakumbh Mela festival going on in India and its significance. Well, there's no other questions. I know the audience are anxiously waiting to get up and ask you guys some questions. We're going to call 6 of them up. Our producer is sending me the names now, texting me to come, ask them. And our next speaker is a woman warrior, Pat Mary Weather. She is a person who was very personally passionate about how patients are treated in Chicagoland nursing homes and elderly abuse at the nursing homes. That was her passion. And when I met her, she had fire in her belly to talk about that. And that's going up against the whole nursing home owners. It's a very big issue, but that, I think, entered her interest in the healthcare field. She is the executive director of the Project Patient Care. She's also an active Rotarian, just returned from Honduras, as she told us, in Mexico and Argentina, I guess. And she's also the chairperson of St. Bernard's Hospital. It's on Englewood, 63rd Street in the south side of Chicago. So please welcome Pat Mary Weather, a woman warrior today, to share her remarks about Martin Luther King Jr. and interfaith dialogue. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's wonderful to be here. And I love all the stories that I've heard because, again, we all bring different backgrounds to the discussion, and yet we all can come together and understand each other. That is remarkable. I'm going to talk about peace. Peace within ourselves, peace within our communities, peace within the world. And I think with Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, because he combined that. And it always, for me, is very important that I think of him as a reverend, because he led with his faith. And in healthcare, he said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. I come from a Catholic background, and one of the key components of the Catholic religion is that health care isn't just a privilege. Health care is a human right. And so that's how I have worked my life, work in quality, safety, working in hospitals, to bring that to the forefront. And with the Chicago area, Chicago used to be mostly all hospitals were religious based. Now there are very few that are religious based, and they're shrinking. And St. Bernard just celebrated their 120th anniversary, and that it was started by nuns from Canada that came to the Englewood community. And much like the rest of even Illinois, it was the faith-based organizations that came and delivered the health care. Now with St. Bernard Hospital, it's a safety net hospital, meaning about 95% of its money comes from Medicaid or no pay, and somehow we make it each year. It's a struggle. As a chair of the board, I spend some sleepless nights wondering how are we going to keep the doors open. And one of the things that took a lot of discussion at St. Bernard, but also in the state, and it became a national issue, New York Times highlighted it, is that in the Englewood community, taking away the gunfire or people dying of gunshots, the average life expectancy is 62 years old, compared to the Gold Coast of 92 years old. So Governor Pritzker was very aware of this issue. He wanted to make a huge impact, and he gave a grant of over $100 million to create the Center for Better Aging. And the Center for Better Aging is a holistic approach to healthcare, not at age 65, but starting at age 50, so that we can make changes. So I think when you look at healthcare, it has changed quite a bit over the years. And when I look at Chicago, we have many disparities in healthcare services, and the access, the outcomes are very different. And in Chicago, how many of you remember that Martin Luther King moved to the west side of Chicago and lived there for several months?
Wow.
It's that he understood empathy, that to understand a community, what people are going through, sometimes you need to go there and you need to be part of it. I've been a bedside volunteer. I work in healthcare, more the administrative, policy, and legislative areas. But I, for 34 years, have been a bedside volunteer at a children's hospital. And so I understand the emotions, the life and death. I can see it on the faces of the parents, on the faces of the children, and I can see it on the caregivers. I've seen many caregivers deliver a message only to go out in the hallway and cry uncontrollably. So I think it's that human side that brings us all together. I was intrigued by Rotary after I had gone to China, and I was asked to speak to Rotary, to a club in Naperville. And the first question I asked is, what is Rotary? I had no idea. I grew up in Chicago. I went to high school about 4 miles from their headquarters. Never heard of it. But I started with Rotary because there's a motto of service above self. And that's what it reflects, is we do service provided with nothing in return. I have gone, and I just found out she's from Nsuka, and I've done several hospital visits and also worked there. I've put in dialysis centers in India, blood banks. I mean, I've been all over. And what I have found is when you work in communities, we do it, it's always co-development. We don't say, you need this. We say, what do you need? What are your needs? And we develop it together. But what I have found is every country that I've been to, and I've been working in about 30 countries, that we all want the same. We want the best education for our children. We want them and our families to be healthy. We want to live in peace. And it's peace within communities. It's and when you start looking and talking to people and realize it doesn't matter what country you're from, it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from, it doesn't matter if you're a migrant or not, we all want the same things. And so how we can work together to bring about that peace. We will not have world peace if we don't come together. And I oftentimes talk to youth at Naperville Central High School, and one of the things they talk about is, for them, the environment is important. That's Mother Earth for them. We sometimes don't think of our relationships with Earth is very vital to all of us, our sustainability. And yet at the same time, the anxiety and some depression of youth has been because they don't believe us adults care about their future. So again, when I think of what we can do together, it is through our faiths. And I'll tell this one story because it's one of my favorite stories, and it shows sometimes we have stereotypes of groups. I was in Pakistan, and it was when they had, the former prime minister had just been jailed, and so they swept me to Karachi so that, again, I could stay away from any type of riots or that. And I said, well, I'd like to see the Sindh Valley. The Sindh Valley in September 2022 flooded, and that's right through Pakistan, the middle of Pakistan. About a third of the country was underwater. People lost everything. And so we went to this community, and this was with Rotarians. It was about 2 hours away. I couldn't even tell you. Everything was villages. I don't know how people get around because there's no signage. There's no like street signs out there. It's just barren. And in this community, they've started with Rotary and other groups are working together to create smart villages. So there's 100 homes. Not the brick and mortar you see here, but it's tailored towards the community and what they wanted. There's joint community centers, education, healthcare. All of that is put in place. It's all donated, and people move back into their community. The first community that was done with these 100 homes and everything, all the equipped homes, was done by the Muslims in Pakistan. And they did it for the group that had come from India a couple decades before and practiced Hindu. They were Hindus. And so when we toured the site, and I have pictures of it, I was so amazed. We walked into this one building and they said, oh, this is a sacred room. This is a sacred building because this is the Hindu temple we built for them. So that is the story of how people are more alike than not. And cricket is a big game. I still don't understand cricket. Somebody's going to have to tell me how it all works. But when I was there, the people from Pakistan were nervous about going into India because there was a tournament, so the Pakistani players were concerned. So they were on the bus going into India. What India did was line the streets with people cheering them on and welcoming them. Those are stories we need to tell, because that's the humanity of it all. We are all one. We are all, it doesn't matter what faith, as it has been said, we have one God, and we have each other, and we have the Mother Earth. So we have a lot.
Thank you so much, the world traveler, the world missionary, Pat Merriweather, for those wonderful remarks of your experience. Visiting 30 countries it's a huge accomplishment. If any of you all would like to add any.
I'd like to add something.
Sure, please.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing such amazing stories. But I was sold with the fact that you dedicate so much of your life to seniors. And for me, I think of judging a community by the way that we treat our seniors. It's an ethnic thing for us across the board, to the point that I married an Italian man, and when his father, my father-in-law, lost my mother-in-law, my husband said, "What do we do with Fred?" And I said, "Fred will come here." Because as Latinos, we're loud, we're proud, and we're together. Yes. And what happens is that we get his wisdom every night at the dinner table. We get prayer, we get togetherness, but also, too, it's an insurance policy for us 54-year-olds that say maybe our children would learn to take care of us. So I commend you for the work that you do for our seniors.
I would like to ask, again, some countries are very good at taking care of their elderly. In the United States, we are not that good. We have nursing homes. There's 14,807 nursing homes, and 10% of them have abuse and neglect. It's much higher in Chicago. Out of 78 nursing homes, 45% have abuse and neglect. These are things that should not be happening. But what happens is many of the residents in nursing homes their families have died off. And so they're there. They have no voice. And so standing up, being an ombudsman, working for them, getting their message across, because it just was horrible. During the pandemic, we worked with Apple as well as Rotary, and we were able to get the iPads that we could deliver to the nursing homes so that they could communicate with their loved ones. But remember, during that time, if you were in a nursing home room, you did not leave that room for about 1.5 years. So your ability to walk, your ability to function. We talk about children that had no access to other children, about socialization. It really, we can and must do better. And again, it's just that I don't have anyone in a nursing home. I've been to many, many nursing homes, but I can tell you, just like I know you work in the jail with the youth, I thought that and refugee camps and nursing homes have been the most depressing areas that I've visited. And it's because the lack of support, the lack of care, and the hopelessness that I see. So I'm glad you're bringing them that inner peace that they can live with. And again, the refugee camps, that's also a source. I was in Jordan and I just was in despair over how many people are just doctors, lawyers, languishing there because, again, that's the refugee situation. So.
Speaking and talking about how the hospitals were mainly set up by religious institutions. I think till today, the little company of Mary Hospital is still run by the sisters and so on, and how St. Bernard was set up. It made me think again about Jesus Christ, how he didn't only heal his own people. I'm thinking of some of the healing he did. He healed the Samaritan. He healed the servant of the Roman centurion. He healed the 10 lepers. He didn't care that they were not Jews or Israelites. And so as you were speaking, I was thinking about that. And then also the Rotary Club. I'm not surprised that you lived where you lived and you didn't know about them, but I don't know if it's because of need, because you cannot live in Nigeria and not know about the Rotary Club. So I don't know if it's because there was more need, but when I came here, they're not as visible as they are over there. So when you were talking, these were my reflections.
And I spent some time in her hometown of Nsukka.
Yes.
Many months.
As you say about Rotary, I have Pew School in the poorest of the poor area. The Rotary Club is providing the uniform. Every year, they come and volunteer the uniform they provided. So when you talk about uniform, I'm talking the poorest area, they don't even have a clothes. Right. So my criteria was everybody should look equal. They should have whatever our kids have here, my student over there should have the similar dress, similar education. So they have a Nike shoes. Otherwise, my wife did buy the Panelist shoes. Make sure we cannot do that. But Rotary Club, within blink of an eye, they provide the uniform. We ask them, they say, sure, we'll provide it. And that was the Rotary Club. As you mentioned that everybody knows who is Rotary Club is. Thank you.
May I?
Yes, please.
First of all, I completely agree with you with social media and TV and the news just screaming doom and gloom. My generation definitely struggles with seeing hope in the future. With that in mind, how would you say, having worked with the Rotary Club at my own school, which I know does some pretty cool things, how would you say young people can fight for their own future?
I think it's becoming strong. Doing some inner thinking, and that's where the meditation and everyone can help you out here. I'm better than I can. But taking a leap, standing up and saying, okay, I'll go to the hospital and see if they need volunteers. I'll go to the nursing home to see if they need volunteers. I'll work in a kitchen or in soups. You have so many places in the Naperville area that you can work in the food banks or in the shelters. I mean, there's always something that can be done. I remember I started volunteering, and this was because I also had a Catholic school upbringing. In grade school, we had to do service, and I think you just grow up that way, that service is to others.
Yeah, Pat, like you rightly pointed out, and Hannah, to answer your question, I think most of our ethnic students do volunteer for the sake of volunteering to get to the next grade or make their applications for college look good. Now, is my question to Jonathan, does Science of Spirituality have any focused programs on the young folks and the youth and school students? I know you have a grand women program, the vegetarian program, the meditation, anything for the youngsters, youth, because I think that would answer Hannah's question.
No, we do. We have a very large youth program, and in that arena, we usually teach meditation for healthy living and dealing with the stress and the anxieties and the stresses of daily life. And it's been received very well, and we're working hard at doing more and more of that. And the idea of service, I think that if somebody's depressed or if somebody's unhappy, there's so much focus on themselves. The more service you can do and the more you can do to help others, that's probably one of the greatest things for healing and building self-esteem. So I think that we really need a revolution of service. And I'm not really 100% sure whether we're getting it from the new generation, like your generation, my generation. But I think that's service, and we call it selfless service. In India, they call it seva. And that's really foundational for change. And that could be even people who go into the government service, whether it's police or the army or whatever it might be, serving others. And, when you talked about the nursing homes, my wife and I took care of our parents for many, many years in our home before they passed. And it is a lot. And it is an immense amount of work. My wife's a professor. She ended up quitting for many years to take care of the parents. Just managing the medication, is a huge job in itself, and having an advocate. So, but I think, service before self and obviously a little bit of meditation is always good. And then I think faith is, that's just where hope begins, when you have a strong faith. So only a couple of little things can make a big change, so.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for that question, and I hope Jonathan answered it well. And that's close to Science of Spirituality is in Lyle. It's in between Lyle and Naperville. So for all the Naperville youth and others around the world, they have 35,000 centers. Talking of youth, there's none other. We have with us a very young, vibrant diplomat, as he calls himself. But he's more a very friendly gentleman. And ever since we met him, he has been embracing and executing a warmth embrace and giving a handshake of friendship, which is never seen before by any diplomatic community. And whether it's I'm from India or from Sri Lanka or Africa, Nigeria or Brazil. And this young man and his team of fellow consuls from the People's Republic of China are all young, late 20s or early 30s. And that's remarkable. And they're well educated, very articulate. That's the new blend of the Chinese diplomacy in North America. And today we have with us Consul Shuai Liu, who has been the last year or so since we met. He has been very embracive with all multi-ethnic communities coming to our programs. We had a previous Chinese Consul General. They are quite old in their thinking, in their age, and the current one. But this guy, Consul Shuai Liu, did I get your name pronounced right? Consul Shuai Liu. And he has a young kids in his as his icon in the phone, and he and his fellow consuls are all young and vibrant, articulate, and very painstaking, eager to represent the Republic of China in America today. And I have not seen that kind of magnetism, that kind of intelligence by any other diplomatic community. With that, please welcome the Chinese Consul diplomat, as he calls himself, Shuai Liu. He's young, he's all of 31 years old, and he's most experienced, let me tell you. Please give a big warm round of applause, and let's have the Chinese viewpoint of Martin Luther King and interfaith dialogue.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vijay, for your kindness introduction about myself. I'm so humble today. Ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished guests and friends who are watching this show, hello to you all. It is such a great pleasure and honor for me to join this meaningful roundtable dialogue about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And also I'm here also be able to meet the leaders from all walks of life. I'm deeply honored and humbled. And just now, your view and perspective about kindness, about love, unity, and also humanity really deeply inspire me, and I'm deeply moved by that. So also big shout to my dear friend Dr. VJ, for organizing such a great event, right? Yeah. Please allow me to have a brief introduction about myself and the workplace I work. My name is Shuai, and I work in the Chinese consulate in Chicago. Our consulate and my colleague, we are committed to deepening the mutual beneficial cooperation between China and the Midwest state of the United States, enhancing friendly exchange between our two peoples and promoting the steady and long-term development of China-U.S. relations. And today, we are gathered here, to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and his revolutionary leadership. Also, some of the panelists mentioned that Dr. King is famous worldwide, and also Dr. King is very famous in China, in case you don't know. Yeah. Especially his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, inspired many people, especially from the young generations. Dr. Martin Luther King was a tireless advocate for equality, for freedom, and for justice. His philosophy of nonviolence not only transformed the United States, but also inspires peoples all around the world. His "I Have a Dream" speech shared a vision of unity and understanding that transcends race and culture. Dr. King's core value of dignity, dialogue, and reconciliation remain timeless. They provide guidance not only for interpersonal relationship, but I think also for fostering understanding and cooperations among countries. So therefore, I like to take this precious opportunity to talk about China-U.S. relations, if you allow me. Yes. So, in the 21st century, I think China-U.S. relations have emerged as one of the most dynamic, consequential bilateral relations globally. These ties influence a wide range of areas, including economic, culture, technology, and global governance. While China and the United States are different in many ways, but our people wish for a happy family, a good life, and a peaceful world. For that to happen, we need a very stable and a sustainable China-U.S. relationship is crucial. In this context, I think we can all draw the strength and wisdom from Dr. King's teachings. His emphasis on bridging divides and seeking common ground is precisely what we need nowadays to navigate the complexities of China-U.S. relationships. Thank you. We need to uphold the principle of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperations. As many of the panelists have mentioned, I want to say it again, as Dr. King's famously said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Through enhancing understanding, we can uncover pathways to resolve our differences. We need to recognize the power of people-to-people diplomacy. Even when officials' relations we are facing hurdles, the interaction between our citizens can serve as a vital bridge, fostering goodwill and paving the way for future partnerships. Therefore, I want to extend the warmest invitation for all the guests here and all the people, friends who are watching this show to visit China. We are, thank you. We are most happy to see more American friends, to tour in China to experience our dynamic country under the 240 hours visa-free, transit policy. Right now, around 16,000 young Americans has visited China for study or exchanges under our initiatives. By reaching out to each other, our two nations' great people have injected constant warmth into our bilateral ties. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Luther King's dream is a universal one, I think. It belongs not only to America, but to all humanity. His teaching remind us no matter how complex the challenges are, they can be overcome through collaboration, understanding, and a steadfast commitment to justice. Also, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do the right thing. Let's draw the wisdom from Dr. Martin Luther King's wisdom, expand the mutual beneficial cooperations, and properly manage our differences, and enhance dialogue and communications so as to find the right way to get along with each other in the new era. My dear friends, a few days later, we will welcome the Lunar New Year of Snake. In the Chinese wisdom, a snake symbolizes agility, wisdom, wealth, and vitality. So therefore, I wish all of you to have a smooth, prosperous, and a promising year of the snake ahead. Thank you so much.
What an eloquent, thank you, wow. What an eloquent speech. Please give a big round of applause to the Chinese diplomat, Consul Shuai Liu. I mean, you so eloquently weaved in the US-Chinese relationships and word of Martin Luther King. Does Science of Spirituality have an office or a center in China?
We do have a center in China, yes. Yeah, matter of fact, some of the representatives were just at the center last week. And it's a small group, and actually we just had some of our recent books have just been translated into Chinese, which is good, yeah.
Coming to our last speaker, we've saved the last for the best. And this is Robert Young Jr. He's a young Turk of Englewood. And when I met him was when Secretary Bizarra, the former Health and Human Service Secretary under Biden, came to Englewood. And we were on a panel. And he came up to me, dressed smartly, a young man in Englewood, introduced himself and said that he would like to learn more about the Gandhi King Center for Nonviolence, which we set up. And he wanted to stop gun violence. He had one question. He says, why my people are not in a position of supporting progressive activities? He always asks me, why my people are not supporting empowerment of our young kids and community? And I told him, instead of asking, why don't you do something yourself? And he was having a food truck at that time. But he put all his investment food truck. But he stopped it and he established and founded the John W. Tussin Jr. Children's and Youth Services. And he's going to talk about what Martin Luther King Jr. and interfaith unity means to him. And he is a resident of Englewood, the same which Pat referred, which the life expectancy there is 62 years, 7 miles across in Streetsville in Chicago downtown, it's 92 years. Over to Robert York. Go ahead, rock.
Thank you. So, first of all, I want to give praise to God, which is the head of my life. Without him, none of this is impossible. Without him, none of this would be possible. I also want to thank Dr. VGP, because for some time now, he's been a friend and a mentor in me, and he's really showed me the way to go. So I just want to say thank you. Next and last, I want to congratulate Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States of America, and just so happens I'm 47 years old, so that works out fine. I just want to tell Mr. Trump that I support you, and I look forward to meeting you so we can make America great again, and also, most importantly, so we can make Dr. King's dream a reality. Can everybody say on the panel, reality? Reality. Yes. So tonight I want to pray. I want to pray for all human beings on this earth. I say human beings because in God's eyes, we are all his children, regardless of race, ethnicity. We are all his children. I want to pray for those who have experienced racism, hate, or any other negative traits. I would like to, I always refer to the Bible, and one of my favorite scriptures is Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive them their sins and heal their land. I want to pray to the end of violence. I want to pray the end of violence, not only in the black and brown communities, but all across the globe. I often wonder why in 2025, 16 years after Martin Luther King made his famous "I Had a Dream" speech, I'm having the same dream. I'm having the same dream. The dream in which my people will one day experience the kind of quality treatment that every person desires for themselves. So, in short, it doesn't matter if you're black, you're white, if you're Protestant, Catholic, Baptist, Muslims. In the words of the late Frankie Beverly, from a song which happens to be one of my favorite songs, you know what that is? We are all still one. Thank you. Good night.
Wasn't that powerful? I thought you were going to sing a verse of that. We are still one. I know you're a good musician, and you ended it up on a wonderful note. Thank you, Robert York Jr., for those words of wisdom. That you still having the dream. And now I would request some of the audience who are here. Any questions you'll have for Robert? Want to make any comments before we have it open for the public and before?
Just one comment, Robert. We admire your energy and commitment for the future. And regardless of it, you like any president or not, when someone becomes the president of the United States, we all should get united and support him.
I think the founder of Chicago Kalibari Temple said it all for all of us, that regardless of who are president, we all should support the 47th President, Donald Trump, and wish him great success in bringing Martin Luther King's dream alive today. And I would like again to thank the powerful panelists for each of your time. And today you all have taken a first step. And this was such an enlightening experience for me, and I'm sure it's going to be for all our 42 million viewers when we release it on February 4th worldwide, and the 2 million viewers in Chicagoland. Now I'll request, we'll request Mr. Sugata Mandal, who is from the president of the Bengali Association of Greater Chicago, is here. We'd like to come and give his comments and feedback. Give a big round of applause.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me. It was really a good eye-opener for me, being with the panel, hearing the panel. We have amazing stories, and I was awestruck with the spread that we had in terms of not only faith, belief, as well as the amount of experience that we have brought to the table. We have people who are a young junior high, right? We have octarians over here. We have a lot of people with a lot of experience. One thing that really, even though I'm amazed over here, looking at the experience that we are bringing to the table, the amount of work that we have done as individuals for our community, one question comes to my mind: how we as one can come together, collaborate together in order to bring the same, what Martin Luther King has said, right? How can we just not be one, just not be a single person? We can come as a one. Is there a way we can come together, collaborate, rather than doing what we are doing individually, right? How can we be different? What sort of things that we need to do differently to make a difference to the country, to the world?
Very good question, Mr. Mandal. Would any of the panelists like to add? I have a suggestion. I think this group, which is such an enlightened group, We are 10 panelists from 10 different backgrounds. Each of you all, we have 10 months coming. Once a month, we can meet at each of your facilities, either Science of Spirituality, Chicago Bari, the Chinese Consulate, and City of Naperville, Brandi Jackson's, even in the jail. As a visitors. No, I know, tough. But I'm saying it's a suggestion we can all thing, and that will be a good thing to keep the movement going, to see that we can practice what we all preach today in our own way.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Manda. Next have Mr. Benjamin Leong from Naperville. We'd like to share his young remarks.
Hello. So, as Dr. VGP said, my name is Benjamin Leong. I am a recent college graduate. And honestly, it's not Martin Luther King Day anymore, it's Thursday, but this day should be a day to celebrate what? Love, peace, and unity. And looking at this panel of so many different people, it's really inspiring, and I hope you all feel the same way, and hope that we all continue to push the message that the good doctor would have wanted. And that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you so much. That was Benjamin from University of Illinois. Said a few words. And now we have Sri Gursami. He is a member of the Naperville City Mental Health Board, a community activist, also the founder or co-founder of the Indian American Caucus. Please welcome Sri Gursami.
It was wonderful listening to all the wonderful panelists here today, and admire the diverse backgrounds you all have, and your perspective on how we can all be united. One central theme that I was able to get from today's panel is we are talking about Martin Luther King, his message, his vision for everyone. It should not be just something that we talk about just on his day. I think we have to carry his message throughout our lives, and we can each one do it in our own communities, in our own friend circles, and we need to have more of collaboration, understanding, and we need to foster an environment of unity, which is very important from our homes, from our work environment, and in the larger community. So I thank everyone for your wonderful message, and let's all work together and be united and make this entire world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri. We have Consul Xiong Xing from the People's Republic of China, another young consul diplomat. Yes. Would like to hear from him and give his remarks.
First of all, dear viewers, dear guests, first of all, I'd like to give big kudos to Dr. VJ for organizing everything. As you can see, here we have a very diverse panelist, and we also have a very diverse audience, I think, from around the world. I totally agree with everything that everybody has said, and it reminds me of one line of song lyrics, in fact, I read from Nightwish, that is, it's hard to light a candle, easy to curse the dark instead. Wow. I think this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did. It's like when everybody was unsatisfied with what is going on, what was the status quo at that time in the society then. It was Martin Luther King who lit the candle. He became the one who led the trend. And his spirit not only moved his own generation, the black people in the United States, but it also influenced me. I still remember when I joined my junior high school, my first class asked us to recite a famous public speech that we had, that we know in our life, and I chose I Had a Dream.
Wow.
Yeah. We hope these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And when it comes to where the future will go, because I, myself, am a beneficiary of globalization and also exchanges. After I was born in 1998, at the age of 4, I moved to Singapore and then to the United States. because my mom and dad at the time were working in a globalized company. And one of their jobs is to work around the world in different positions. So during those 2 years, I spent two precious childhood years in Houston, in Texas, where fortunately I was very well received, unlike the immigrants that we see today maybe at that then. But, and also I owe my mom and my granny a lot. They are the heroes of my life. My granny was a professor of English, and she retired early and gave up the opportunity to be promoted to Professor Emeritus to teach me alone. So I owe her a lot. And by getting in touch with people from different walks of life and from different countries, I get further committed that it is best for us to work together. And regardless of our nationality, race, faith, or preference in other fields like what food you eat, it is important that we must take each other as friends. And I used to, as a diplomat, although I'm very young, I also already got the opportunity to serve in the different diplomatic posts before I came to the United States. I'm not sure whether you have heard of it. It's called Vanuatu. It is an island country very close to Fiji, where we have a lot of Indian immigrants there.
Okay.
Only 1 hour away, and it's only got 300,000 people, smaller than the community than we have in Chicagoland. There, they also taught me something. The local people, they're also black people, although they will not consider themselves as African Americans because they're Melanesian. They do not come from Africa originally. They taught me one thing, that is, Kevin. My mom gave me this name because teachers find it difficult to pronounce Chinese. Always to be friends to all and enemies to none. This becomes, in fact, the spirit that they guide their own diplomacy. And I think this is also a very good guideline for me to do it when I'm working as a diplomat joining the Foreign Service. So thanks so much, feeling really humbled. I have stage fright, but with you, I feel confident. Yeah, so let us work together so that we can live together in harmony and create a community with a shared future for all. Thank you very much.
Wow, Kevin, you gave the best closing remarks. I think all of us will stand up and give you a standing applause for this wonderful way you closed this roundtable on interfaith dialogue.
Thank you.
We'll request our PTC chief also, sir. Could you please come and say your remarks?
Thanks for letting me say a few things about the Martin Luther King. As everyone knows, and
look in the camera,
that Martin Luther King was very non-violent promoter of that protest. He was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. He is a father of non-violence throughout the world, where he started actually in South Africa and then went to India. And that led to get the freedom of India. A lot of people disagree with that idea that it led to that part, but still, general thought is that that's the protest, that he had the non-violence, led to the freedom of India. And same way, Martin Luther Jr., he followed Mahatma Gandhi with the non-violence. And his famous speech, like everyone mentioned, I have a dream, which is, you can say, universal to the humanity. Everyone has the dream. They can express or they may not express, but still they have the dream. And that's the one thing that Martin Luther Jr. did that led to the civil rights and to the freedom of our people, regardless of color and creed. And with that, we all are enjoying that freedom. We can say anything, we can become citizen. Like most of us, all are immigrant, except original Americans, which are very few now. But everyone else is an immigrant today or 100 years back, but they are immigrant, they were immigrant. So we are enjoying the freedom, we are enjoying all the rights, and we are very lucky to be one of the best world on this earth. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Magdi.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, elevate your business to new heights and reach 35 million potential customers with Global Eye Digital. Contact us today at globaleyedigital@gmail.com or info@globaleyedigital.com. Let's take your business global.
Get your brand connected to 35 million readers in India and 2 million in the USA. Global Eye Magazine, the fastest growing Indo-US weekly. Our magazine dives deep into exclusive stories, face-to-face interviews, and key happenings across the USA and India, delivering content you won't find anywhere else. Advertise with Global Eye Magazine and reach highly targeted and influential audience. Contact us to book your ad space.